Let's Phil. Call to order, roll call and declaration of a quorum. Richard Heisey. Here. Bennett Aiken. Here. Donnie Elias. Peter Argentine. Here. Bob Mackey. Here. Kelly O'Rodnick. Tom Chuck. Here. And thank you, Rudy Supel and Philip Olio. Commissioner Flynn's not going to be with us this evening. No guest commissioner. Oh, hi, Judy. You're just in time. Would you like to make a citizen comment?
No, I'm just interested. Thank you.
Hey, any citizen comments online? Doesn't look like it.
Nothing there yet.
Arboretum event 2023 at Bird Park on October 15th, 1 to 3 p.m. That is a Sunday. So Kelly has been communicating with Sharda, yeah. And Tom, you want to, before we get to the specific PAB volunteer topic, you want to give us an update or a background on?
Recording in progress.
Yeah. You're gonna mime this back.
Yeah, there we go. There you go.
We got that? Okay, good. Yeah, there will be an event on the 15th, 1 to 3.
Sure.
Sorry.
Another. Speakers, salute.
How about now? Okay, I got it. Found another one. Sorry about that.
Okay, so the Arboretum events, October 15th from 1 to 3, and their activities, including, this is from an email from Sharda. Tours of the riparian restoration area. Richard, I think you may be leading those.
I'm doing, yes, that'd be a tour.
I won't be able to be there because I will be out of town for a high school reunion, but, Richard, you're at least, so we'll at least have one PAB representative there. Yeah, does anyone else want to go and represent Parks Advisory Board and maybe talk about something at a stand by a table?
I want to, but I'm in Boston.
Okay, sorry. Because I thought I can stand there by a table and talk about tree guards as an example. That'd be great if you could.
My guess is if the weather's good, it'll be well attended. I mean, there was pretty good attendance last year and there's no Steelers game. They moved it to not be up against the football game. So it's a Sunday with no Steelers football. So
Are you touring?
yeah, I'm touring, yeah.
So.
There was a question about if there's leftover
Pamphlets.
in pamphlets.
I'll check out front there. I think that was the only ask, right?
Yeah.
Do you have any of the black plastic guards left?
I have a whole new box that came in today.
Oh, great. Because I could show that, I could show the one that you make.
500 of them.
Yeah, I can pull one out. I could probably find one temporarily. No need to make a special trip. I'll just find it.
Ellie had a sign last year, I think, that said, because I got there at the end, towards the end of it, but it said about when we have our meeting. I think it was something you had brought up previous,
Okay.
when we have our meetings and,
All right.
you know, yeah, and just if you want to comment,
All right.
things like that.
That's a good idea.
So, I know they've hung up the flyers around town, posted on social media. This is a requirement of our
Level 1 agreement.
number one agreed status. Thank you. So should be great. The weather cooperates, should be a great event.
And then the email, and I can forward you this email that Sharda sent a day or so ago. She asked whether the Parks Advisory does the Parks Advisory Board log the event into ARBNet, which may be necessary to complete certification. I have no idea.
I don't think, I usually get a communication from ARBNet, upon upon renewals.
Well, okay,
She just says, touch and base, let you know you're still here.
okay.
If there was something that was done in the past that maybe Elaine did or Greg Newman before that, I don't know.
Yeah. I can see if I can find out if. they-
Well, Elaine would be the one to ask.
Yeah.
She was the one that drove the initiative.
She's online, she's up in Vermont for a couple of months, but she's reachable, so I'll ask her.
Couple months, that's not.
Approval of September minutes. All in favor? Aye. Public Works updates on grounds, facilities, trees, etc.
Quick maintenance update and, for you guys some more. The, over at Bradfordton, the fence work portion of that first, phase of improvements is done and up. The refurbishment of the shorter fence to save some bucks and get rid of the safety hazard, make it look nice and clean. Actually, it took really well. Everything straightened out really nice. But there's nice new fabric on it now, with the bottom rail to support more of that kicking against the fence and that type of thing that happens down there. Fence continued along all the way where the backstop used to be. Put a jog in it about halfway. That's a pretty long run to need to get on the other side for, go get a ball, whatever the reason is. We kept at all points of the path, there's at least 5.5 feet for a future walking trail that might loop into the trail up along the wood line, might go back to the cul-de-sac. So that possibility is in there for future planning.
Erosion, so you don't have to put the fence.
And a little bit of that, but we took a lot of the spoils from removal, install of new posts and built up some back areas. So it's especially towards where the dugout benches used to be, that's been reworked and compacted in. The next phase is the earthwork company, Thomas's Pro Turf will come in and reshape that infield, add the correct depth of topsoil, feather out the edges of where the infield arc used to be, and get a nice drain off the whole field. So rather than cramming 2 fields in there that you can't move to help us rest high wear areas, we'll have some more flexibility next year, maybe to stack all.
It's gonna be like a graded field, not flat, but like.
Correct.
higher in the middle.
He sees what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
So, he'll be in there about, I think, October 16th. I guess 2 days or so. Material will come in up at the cul-de-sac, come in with a dump truck that's designed for turf work, has tires that get deflated way down, spreads the load over so we're not making ruts back and forth. So we should get out of there with a small footprint.
Will grass be planted this year?
Yes, we'll get 2 growing seasons on it. And we'll make the call if we want to have sports maybe stay off it for a little more in the spring. We're all on the same page in that regard. So that'll be snow fenced off to keep that, nice warm winter day in December. You go out there and think it's grass and it's how it's supposed to be, but it's not gonna foot like normal turf is, the first year. Over at the bathrooms at Main Park and the concession restrooms in between Dixon and Middle. As soon as we shut down water this year, we're going to do a new epoxy floor in both of those with the chips and everything like that. That's something that I think is a big box on the master plan, was improve site amenities, things along that line. If you've gone in the Main Park one, it's not horrible by any means, but we'll pull the fixtures, install new sinks. So have a nice little refresh of those 2 areas anyway. They're high use. Gonna be doing about 210 foot of the inside against the hillside slope at Middle and Seymour Field. That's the worst section of that fence. The idea is that when turf replacement comes, that fence won't get ripped out to put the new turf in. So it's an upgrade to some pretty terrible fencing if you've been down there recently on that far side. So we're gonna address that before we get the pool side, if you wanna call it, yes. And that is posts already in a concrete nailer. We're just gonna straighten, put new fabric on, add top and mid rail. There was currently 8 foot fence with no rail support. So anything getting kicked against it was terrible. Kids would climb over for balls. We're gonna add a gate halfway through to help encourage a new style of going to get your ball, which doesn't involve climbing that. Invasives with Eichenlaub will start next week. He was trying to get guys out this week, but it was gonna be rushed. So I'll meet with them early next week. I have all your comments throughout the year where you've seen stuff. I'll probably reach out to you guys again at some point next week. Just let you know where we've been and everything. I'll share all the maps with everyone. That kind of gives you a feel for what we got for our dollar amount. Our PO is still at $5,000. That's the sheer service level. And then obviously invasive report will come and we'll see. I'm sure there'll be discussions on if that needs to go up, down, double, triple, wherever it comes to be.
Birds Park's in pretty good shape.
I was gonna skip it entirely.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, some other
What is that,
areas.
about that, whatever, that mile a minute or whatever?
Yes, that's what I'm waiting to hear back, from Tim on where exactly it's solid.
Twin Hills is in terrible shape.
Yes, I might put some effort down at the lower entrance. We'll see, where we get. We had 2 meetings as far as staff goes with Patrick, MTR and Draw on the main park master plan. More of just a feel of our operations. They want to know what we're doing now, how we're doing it. So we had two really good meetings with that. It was purely information sharing, so wasn't any new ideas or anything thrown out there. They just wanted to understand what we're doing each day.
Are they gonna do any sort of usage density calculations, like how many people use the tennis court complex per day on average, how many use the rec center, how many use the playground, just to see kind of how much intensity per, say, 1,000 square feet we get from various facilities or anything like that?
Probably have to pop that over to Ian and give it back to you. I'm not sure what metrics or if they're that far into it at this point, but doing the comp plan, they obviously have some information, so. Down at these Parklet, and the Rob Hollow, Friday and Monday, Zatoll Landscaping came back, replaced the 11 trees that did not make it. Full brand new plantings with correct detail of mulching. None of the trunks are swallowed and volcanoed. They do know what they're doing. It looked like a good job. They watered those in heavily, kind of restored the trail a little bit on their way out. So they took them a little bit to get there, but they've been there and they put the plantings back in that did not make it. And they put the guards back on as well. So we don't have, as far as I know, any buck rub stuff up there. 1 or 2 bushes. I think they're gonna make it. But everything up there right now is back to, what it was 2 years ago when they installed it. So
Should there be water bags there since it's been so dry?
we're talking about that this week.
We're supposed to get some rain on Friday afternoon.
Yeah,
Nice,
it's gonna cool off.
nice steady rain, for Friday and Saturday. So we'll see where it's at after that.
Yeah.
If we have to put them on, it's pretty quick. and
Monday
easy.
from 7 until 3, there was one guy dropped off there with a hose. And his job was to water the trees the entire day, so they soaked him in pretty good.
Did you get your, I'm sorry,
No, that's that.
did you get your tree order for this year?
Not yet, no. I requested quotes from a couple different nurseries, so I'm waiting for those to get in. Should be by the end
Curious
of
to
the
see it
month.
when you finally get.
Question about the cedar turf area. That is gonna be replaced at some point in the near future. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'd say within 5-ish years would be my guess. We're doing a pretty good job on it right now.
Are there any, in your mind, opportunities around the edges to maybe eliminate any natural area? Either put turf on it or put concrete on it, or basically any like little apron edges or anything, because I get feedback from, people that use that and they say, well, it's nice, but it'd be even better if we didn't have like gravel over here and, you know, it seems like maybe there might be some maintenance efficiencies and more of it were artificial surface.
Did some of that initially, whenever there was some like, I'll say it's 1A aggregate, I think it was. Around some of the fence perimeters, and we actually capped it off with asphalt to keep that from migrating into cause we were up there every couple of days cleaning that 1A out of the material, and it was a mess. So we had our guys go through by hand and just cap that off with a little bit of asphalt. It was just underneath the fence, and it was probably what, Phil, a foot, maybe 2 feet.
No bigger than 18 inch.
Yeah.
It was all handwork to get it under,
But
literally under the fence.
it lessons learned after we had it put in, we figured, okay, this is gonna be good because you won't get many weeds or anything growing out of it. But then you got the 1A that would migrate, and it wasn't even intentional, you know, the kids would kick a ball over there or something, and
Yeah.
it's loose material and never tightens up, you know, so it stays loose, so we were able to cap that off, so we will look at what we need to do in other areas. I know there's some grass areas around the outfield fence for Wildcat or you know, that big tall fence, and that's a mess too, trying to maintain a natural grass mowed area next to an artificial surface. And you have a real steep slope there, so where do you blow the grass? They don't want to catch it. The mower, you know, the mowing contractor doesn't really want to catch it, so it becomes a problem there too. So we're gonna try and button some of those perimeters up if we can, you know, best we can, when it's redone.
We met and walked 2 areas so far out of 3 for signage. With the groups this past couple days, I had to reschedule and jog some things. Thank you guys for getting back to me. Did the main park sort of area. Big takeaway from there is we're thinking that we'd leave the main park entrance brick sign alone for right now. That most likely will turn into some type of message board, LED. I mean, that's kind of the big picture thought. So we hate to force that sign into that brick somehow, or rip the brick down and replace it with a sign that then gets replaced with a kiosk. So I think we're gonna slow play that, but we'll kind of look at that again. But we decided on some locations for field signs, wrap that all up. Bird, Raw Apollo, and we'll be sending all this out to you guys, some pictures of, you know, what we thought and everything on locations. This activity is just for me to get a scope on if we need a single, double side or box. So far, we feel the box sign is appropriate at the Beadling lot for Bird. It's kind of a big staple area, that probably needs one. A lot of the other places really need just the one sided. There weren't many double that we selected. When you start thinking about where your traffic's coming from, for instance, Highland Terrace, you can't even park there. So you're really not wanting to capture a lot of the vehicle traffic. There's a sidewalk coming down, you know, so, and most likely if you live up there, you passed it on your way in and you know about it. So, well, it seemed like a simple exercise, but it took a long time so far just to knock a couple out. You start really talking it out, but we're gonna do another round tomorrow. So you can check emails and I'll send another reminder out. Whoever can make it great. That's it for that.
Bill, what's the schedule on the Oikos report
The remaining schedule,
roughly?
he was reporting back with a draft, I thought, in December, with a final in January, or it was 1 month before that, in November,
He didn't
December.
feel he would have anything wrapped up before the end of the year, so,
I was thinking it was earlier than that, but
Yeah,
not for the final.
it may have slipped or whatever.
so he's gonna get the maps that I worked through with Eichenlob as well, so we can see how much, and I gave him the last 4 years of maps we've done with Eichenlob, so he knows what we've been chipping off or maintaining or holding the line with. So I'll let him know again what we get done this year. That'll probably give him an inkling as to what our capacity is at that funding, you know. But some areas are being almost eliminated, like we're not even gonna go to Iroquois this year. That was 5 years of just straight, you know, keeping those banks at bay. And it's manageable to the point where I can get in there and it's not, you know, taxing on the rest of what I do to get in and do that. So we don't need to pay someone to go over there.
Regarding the maps, I haven't used it myself yet, but I do recall you presented us with the grid system.
all online.
Is
Yep.
it worth it or would it be helpful to use that as part of the Eichenlob mapping?
I might translate it or give him loose copies and tell me where you were, where you ended up. You know, I know where the problems are. But if that patch or not, if you feel that that patch needed continued and worked down, then mark off where you've been. So it's gonna be a mix of the both.
I think we know where most of the stuff is at. I mean, Phil.
No, I was just
but
thinking from a mapping standpoint, like record keeping.
the main thing
To use those
with
grids.
that is the communication back to us. So if somebody says, hey, there's, a tree down across the path, or there's, a stand of knotweed, or whatever it might be. We'll ask them to reference that in the grid format, so that we know it'll get us close to where we need to be, and that's really what the tool that we were looking to use for that purpose.
Okay.
I already got one from Kelly already. Said, hey, gee, I forget what it was, something I prepared last week.
And it's nice because you can pull it up on your phone, you just touch it, it tells you what grid you're in, and you geolocate yourself and hit the grid and pass it on.
I texted our forestry guys 2 snags over main parks or main paths in Twin Hills this week. They went and dropped both of them. I didn't have to send them a picture and then go, hold on, I'll be over. It was, here it is. So,
So it's already helped us.
Did you have a chance to check on the citizens' comments from last time?
Main
Or
part.
main part?
yes, that tree that they referenced that was leaning is down.
Okay, great.
The cherry didn't look so hot. Definitely not 100% standing dead, but little education on a tree, you could look up and say that should go. So,
The cherry.
but as far as the boundaries and everything go, I drove up there and kind of walked it. I understand everything and where we're at in that, but that far corner is definitely not, we're not mowing that full width out there. I don't know we would, to get that back to a mowable size thing, I mean, we're talking some, and for what, I know it's a good look and everything, but. So we'll look at that in the fall. That's kind of when we can chip away at little things like that, so. Immediate hazard was taken care of, next day, so we're good over there.
On that same vein, you may have your tree person look at all the pines behind the fence at Bird Park. They all look like they're failing. They're turning brown on the tops and they look like they're all diseased. So, sometimes if you have a crane or something, it'd be easier just to cut them off and drop them on the field and haul them out versus trying to drop them across the path. But those are big trees and they all look diseased, or most of them look, a number of them have failed already. But I was surprised after I cleared them up, pulled the vines out of them, how bad they looked.
That's along the short black fence.
Yeah, along this, on the
White
east
pines.
side. Yeah, all those white pines, they're all, I just looked at them and they're all turning brown in the top. So I don't know if they're beetles or, what, but they don't look good. I mean, I remember 3-4 years ago, they looked pretty good. They look pretty sickly now.
Is that one thing that's the old, or the site of the old swing set no longer there below the commissioner's lot?
That's a Pittsburgh address right there. Where the swings used to be by the,
Yeah, right.
I know where you're at.
I think the post holes, they've
Sunk it in a little,
Yeah,
okay.
so they're definitely
Back
tripping hazard. Okay, any other?
I just wanted to compliment the Bradford End work, because I think it shows some foresight to include the space for the path, and also the thinking about the kids running for the balls and having to jump over the fence.
Yeah, it looks nice and clean.
Nice to think about that.
There's, I know some soccer's down there mainly right now. They're very happy, so.
A couple just real quick things. We started lease season Monday, so our crews are gonna be stepping it up each week here, and by the first week of November, we'll have 5 or 6 trucks out with 2 employees in each one, so that kind of takes up a lot of time, but we are gonna, as Peter asked, we'll be planting trees. We're gonna split our tree planting up this year because it's kind of a little bit late this year, and it takes so much resources to manage the leaf program, the leaf collection program. So we're gonna get, we have about 180 trees that we removed, and some of them were really large. We're actually just finishing up stump grinding because some of the trees were so big. Over on Austin, for instance, we took quite a few of those oak trees down. So the replants are going into those places, but we're gonna do about 85 to 90 trees, and then the trees that are not safe to dig in the fall, winter, we'll choose from that list in the spring whenever we put our orders in for that, and we'll plant in the spring. just to make it a little, easier for our guys. Got a path specification, construction specification from our engineer. I'll share it with the entire group, but, he was able to provide the specification that's used for the Montour Trail and also for the trail that we use, because they do a lot of work on the Montour Trail, for different entities and so forth for that trail group, Gateway Engineers does. And it's the same spec that we use down near the, firing range and also that path along Cedar Boulevard. And it's held up really well. I mean, it's tightened up. I think it's number 10, limestone, crushed limestone, over 4 inches. I think it's 1.5 inches or 2 inches over 4 inches of 2A modified, so compacted. So I will share that with the group. He just got that to us a couple days ago, so we'll share that with you. I know that's one of the things we wanted to set. So we had a standard going forward, at least for some of the main paths. And then they also provided us a estimated pricing for checking the boundaries, but not survey work. Basically what they're proposing is to use LiDAR imagery. And what they're saying here is to provide a deep plot over the top of aerial imagery, which would be LiDAR, for use as a tool to view the approximate property line based on record of information. This doesn't require any field work. For parks like Main Park and Bird Park and such, the larger parks that have more properties around the perimeter, it would be about $5,000 to $7,000 to produce that imagery for us from the LiDAR and the overlays and so forth. And then we could make the determination based on that, whether we want to take the next step, which is going to be a lot more expensive to go out and survey the property lines between the things. So we'll enter this into the budget, the numbers. We were trying to get the numbers for the operating budget, and then we'll see where we go from there.
And that would at least accomplish kind of one of the things that at least PAB was recommending for where there is encroachment, at least so the city
Right.
delivers that letter saying,
Right.
hey, we see you're on our property, we're not telling you to stop.
We're just
but-
letting you know this is
but we're
municipal
reserving our
property.
right that
Right.
this is municipal
Or just to
property.
make them aware, and they may already be aware of it, but yeah.
By putting that letter to file, and you avoid all that.
I think this would get us, within a foot or so, with the LiDAR imagery. Do we need to be survey grade? Probably not, really not, no.
If you had pushback, so well, you could survey
That-
it.
yeah, exactly.
You want a bad survey?
That's exactly right. Just to prove us wrong, yeah. So here's what we have. So that's the other thing. I think that's it for right now. Sure.
This is when we would normally have commission update from Commissioner Flynn. In his absence, we could skip, or we could talk about the last couple of commission meetings. It's been pretty interesting. The one thing I think was most potentially impactful for Public Works is this push for electric equipment. There was a greens mower purchased or to be purchased for the golf course, and some information was presented. And I would encourage you all to watch the last two meetings to understand the logic for that. So, just curious. Any other commissioner?
How many mowing hours you can get per battery?
It's not per battery, it's per cycle for the machine. And I mean, they'll cover what they need to do. It's a 9-hole golf course, so. Mowing the greens is probably gonna take about 2 hours for them to complete that, 2 to 2.5 hours, but it would have to be on charge overnight. And the charge would be
That's just for the green.
8-inch cycle, correct, yeah. But the one thing that I noticed that they called out was to replace the batteries on that unit, which they're estimating they should last about 5 years, but the machine is cycled into a lower use machine for cutting tees and aprons. After 5 years, it's about $20,000 to replace the lithium ion batteries that are in it. So that's a substantial cost, versus gasoline engine. I'm sorry.
If the price doesn't go up.
If the price doesn't go up, number one, and if they do last 5 years, you might only get 3 years out of it too. And I'm not,
What I can't comprehend is the statement about fire safety upgrade that all the facilities would. need
sprinklers,
In
right?
order to house these machines. I can't see how that would be feasible in like a Public Works Cedar Boulevard type facility with. all
We have
those.
sprinklers in that building.
But I think it's more like a different type of fire
like
suppression.
a foam or like a
maybe electrical fire.
halon or something like that, yeah.
In an environment with giant open doors, I don't know how that
Yeah.
works. So that.
Well, there's challenges, no doubt, but,
Problematic.
and the expense too, I mean, the mower itself is gonna cost, about 1.5 times the cost of the gasoline firepower.
It's 56% more expensive.
1.5.
But it's a.
Yeah. You got it. Okay. Moving on, comprehensive plan. So Ian distributed a draft to Sports Advisory Board, Nature Conservancy, and Parks Advisory Board. We've all looked at it via email. Several of you have provided feedback. And I am compiling all that and trying to pick up on the main themes to highlight them. And I'll give Ian a summarized document this week. Thanks for the input. And I think I'll just lead it off here and say, it's interesting to see how this fits into the other processes, meaning the Parks Master Plan, this whole board process. We know we have to do the comp plan as a municipality, so we sort of have to take from these different elements, but also create a new thing entirely. So
Well, that's where I'm confused, because when we were doing the Parks Master Plan, there's things we wanted to do, but Ian said we couldn't because he had to conform the master planning process to what's needed for the comprehensive plan. He said the reason he's willing to do the Parks Master Plan was because he could just plug it into the comprehensive plan and that part would be done. And it sounds like we're starting all over. I'm really lost on, that was part of the point of the way we did the Parks Master Plan was so it could just be plugged in and be the comprehensive plan for the parks. So somewhere that either, Ian changed his mind or something changed, but yeah, I recall meetings where we could do like X, Y, and Z and the master plan, and he said, well, I can't do that because that doesn't conform to the comprehensive planning process. I need to use this for the comprehensive plan.
I was very confused by the statement that update the Mount Lebanon Parks according to visual community-wide master plan. Something new or something different, or
There is
did the parks plan?
I don't know if there's a master plan. There is a community design standard, but it doesn't go into great detail. I mean, it has things like about where dumpsters can be. I looked into it because of the community garden situation, but it did get into like aesthetic design approaches to all facilities need to be kind of aesthetically pleasing or conform to Mount Lebanon standards. Which is another thing which I was raising about the garden at the time, but so it is, but it doesn't go into the kind of granular detail that was referred to there, so I was confused by that as well.
Yeah, so if I don't, for me, of course, have Ian explained how does the Parks Master Plan, or does it at all bolt into the comprehensive plan, or is that changed? Because nothing listed in the comprehensive plan recommendations was in the Parks Master Plan. Not a single item.
Well, and also
Yeah, so
things that
that-
we considered in the Parks Master Plan and throughout
Throughout,
that appear in the comprehensive.
that suggestion, it's not clear where that's coming from.
And when they had that public input map, I contacted Ian and I said, I'm confused. Why are a lot of the comments are directed at parks and they're reiterating things that we've already explored, like dog parks and things like that. And Ian's response was that was just because it was this format, but those things,
You almost get the
then they
impression that whoever didn't like the output of the Parks Master Plan, so they're starting over. Yeah, so I don't know. The other specific one, which Rudy just touched on, is how do you build a path? And if there's a mobility portion of comprehensive plan, the individuals recommending construction of an ADA compliant path need to understand what the ADA construction standards are, because it's not easy. And it's technically hard and complicated. And you've got grade limitations, you've got slope widths, all sorts of the base, the density of the base. You can't just draw a line and map, say, well, let's build an ADA path here. You could, but it may be really expensive. So if there's desire for an ADA path, try to use the natural landscape that lends itself to such. Or existing paths and things.
So the document that you found, it was a PDF, it was
Yes.
outdoor accessibility standards,
Yeah.
it was a federal thing.
Yeah.
Was that
That's pretty much what you need to know to build an ADA compliant outdoor path.
I'm not.
Because there's exceptions allowed to like the, because the natural beauty of if building, if complying with the federal standards would harm the scenic beauty, you can get exceptions.
Which is where the riparian thing came in.
Yeah, and so, that you just need to understand, what the federal regulations are.
Because I was gonna include that. I mean, the overriding idea is there are ideas in that draft that if left alone, go out to the public that have never been reviewed by you guys or Gateway or anybody looking at the requirements of what an ADA path is.
I would like it to our critique specifically to say that they should, similar to what you say in your opening, but that they should not specify any ADA path without consulting a consultant that is an ADA expert,
Well,
and specifically the ADA, natural area expert, because it's different from doing a museum or something else like that.
like the city attorney's mind, that you can't just slap some ADA parking spaces in the upper lot. And if you read that federal document on trail, the whole access road down to the porta potty and the parking lot is considered one system. So the second you pave it, you have to make that entire system ADA compliant. And the ADA rules, read that guide, say the parking spaces have to be at the field because the primary use of the system is for access to that field. So if there's a desire to pave that lot and have some sort of ADA compliance, realize that project is paving the lot, paving the entire access road, ensuring that it doesn't, I don't think the access road has more than a 7% grade. But then putting a row of parking spots right at the field.
I think there's a limitation on it though, Richard, if I'm not mistaken, it's a percentage of the overall budget of the project. You're only required or mandated to spend a certain X amount of dollars, and I can't remember what that is. I think it's like 20 or 25% of the overall project cost. That's your limitation. You don't have to, spend end of the world money in order to make everything compliant. You've made an effort to do the best you can with what you have. Because they don't want you to jack the project cost up to the point where you can't afford to do the project.
If you want ADA compliant spots, the spots are at the field, not at the upper lot.
Yeah.
Because
For what?
because the lot is for access to the field. So if you read the rules, I think the attorney said that too, that if you start to pave the upper lot and then you trigger the ADA rules, the ADA rules require the ADA parking spots to be at the field level.
I don't know about that.
He had said that in a commission.
Maybe this is, maybe.
So the point being is somebody, to Peter's point, that somebody needs to consult an
Right.
expert. Because at least that's what the city attorney's read of the rule was, that he said there's a, I didn't say for sure, but it looks like that the ADA spots, if they exist, have to be at
What if you
so
put
again,
another
if you start,
feature?
the point is, if you start doing an ADA path in the eastern side of Bird Park, plus the parking lot, plus ADA spots at the field, it's starting to cost a lot of money. Is that really where you want to put your dollars?
I think like common sense would be, as far as the field goes, if you have an elderly person, let's say, or somebody who's not mobile, that's again, if you're saying they wouldn't park the upper lot because the slope is too steep to get down there. So they wouldn't need to park at the bottom. And as it is right now, I think people can be dropped off at least.
It is tough.
Yeah.
And I actually interviewed 2 walkers with canes yesterday and today at the lower level while I was working. and asked them, you know, why do you come here? Why, because they were both had a person to watch them while they walked. They were both pretty handicapped. And the one individual, he hopped it up to that little slope right at the lower lot and then went up to the pavilion access road. He says he loves the pavilion access road. It's a good surface, it's wide, he can walk on it, it's stable. And the other point he made, which surprised me, he says it's shaded. He says he struggles in the summertime walking in the sun. So he just said, if something like, or like that path, like you said, Montour Trail, is something that's hard, wide, and flat and shaded, you know, is a big plus for him. The other woman was walking with a cane and she went straight out, you know, down along the stream. And her suggestion was at the point where the steps are, if there was any way those could be made longer, the grade less. She said she struggles with that one spot. She loves walking that path. Her spouse was with her and kind of supporting her. And she just walks to Youngwood and back. And then her point too about from the parking lot to about where the fire ring is gets pretty muddy. So she can't use the path when it's wet because it's too unstable for her cane. So she only can come when it's dry, but she comes whenever she can and just does that walk. The other individual said he comes almost every day. I've seen him, the other individual with his dog before, and you know, he goes at about a mile an hour down the pavilion trail, past the pavilion, and he can, because it's flat. And he so those were two individuals. They both said, you know, just for one obstruction, both of those paths are relatively good for someone who's disabled. Oh, the service could be improved. So I think that would be a suggestion. For example, look at the lower side of Bird, or even we looked at McNeely before when Jonathan Farrell looked at it. McNeely was the best. Actually, he felt the best place for an ADA path. Yeah, because you could go along the grade lines. You go along the grade line, switchbacks, back along the grade line, switchbacks, and you can make a 1/3 mile loop. And it would be fairly straightforward. There'd be no earth movement. So if that was the biggest spot he could find in the park system for an ADA road. But we have no parking in Johannes. But I think he looked at that in like 2017 or 18. Oh, sorry, I talked too much.
Anyway, I'm gonna take all the emails that came in, put it together and just try to summarize it as best I can and get it back to you this week. Anyone else want to dive into anything on that? I think kind of.
Oh, well, I'll begin because when I do a demo of that trail standard, you can do it from the lower lot to the fire ring.
We're getting there. We have our operator looked at it.
Definitely. She said, yeah, this today, I just talked to her like at 2 o'clock. She said, if anyone, if we could somehow fix that spot so it's not muddy, she would be able to use the trail almost year round, but that is a barrier for her.
Question about the fire ring. Is it as wide as it is with the intention that children sit on the inside? I mean, it's really big.
Nobody knows.
Like I was wondering, you could have it up by the pavilion, have it be a lot smaller. And then manage access to both features through one
May have been
path.
to keep children from actually falling in, thinking about
Yeah, I mean, when they have scout groups, they do take up a pretty good part of it. I've seen family birthdays where they're pretty spread out. They're putting food on the sills as well. But I don't know.
It was just, it's just really big, that's all.
It's pretty old.
You could have a pallet.
It's a research project for the Historical Society.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Old business status and discussion, just a couple minutes on each. Communications and signage, I think Bill had basically given us the update from out scouting for double-sided, single-sided blocks.
Yep, we got a third group tomorrow. Forget where we'll meet. I've sent out 30 different drafts on it, so.
Was Ron Block able to join you?
Ron got in for most of the first one, so he got some input on where they thought Rob Hollow entrance was for now, until maybe the Kelso Bend thing ever gets funded or looked at. So he gave some good input, and I've asked both groups we've gone out with to, even ones they didn't visit, just let me know your thoughts. But most of it's been straightforward. There have been some, no lie, like 20-minute head scratchers on, you can only cover so much with, 2 lanes, pedestrian. Some of them get a little complicated to think about, so. Yeah, we'll kick all those back to, our staff group for kind of final, just peek over. Might print some on a cheaper material to get some actual scale and look at it before we purchase, the hardware, so to speak.
There was concern about pretty much, at least on the first meeting, that the font size is way too small.
Yeah, some of the field signs needed,
Yes.
boosted, so.
Yeah.
Forestry and invasives, you mentioned report draft, in December, final in January. Any other questions or updates on that topic?
I'll verify that for everybody.
Park design guidelines, we will confer on that next time. Main Park Master Plan, Richard. Any updates?
That's pretty well done. I mean, there's a consultant now, so there's no working group.
Rafferton Restoration, Phil, you've updated us. Donna's not here. Any other comments or questions on Rafferton?
So did we mention in the comp plan stuff that's already done?
Yeah, so that was interesting too. It's like, on the one hand, why put stuff out there to raise hopes? But then again, we do put stuff out there that's pretty much already baked. So Meadowcroft, Rafferton. I mean, it doesn't, I don't think it's a problem. It's just
It's a strange.
interesting.
And they also had a whole section on communications and signage, which I understand the context of connectivity, but again, kind of acted like there was no knowledge of any other work, or that there's been a committee within the, the public information office and everything designing, and so that seemed strange to me.
Yeah, think about it, Pinecone Park, Rafferton, the trees on the slope, so there's been a lot of stuff done in the last 2 years.
Invasives in the municipal code, I wouldn't expect any updates there, Tom.
Yeah, no. That was last one.
PAB duties and tasks. We checked that.
I got all your comments. They've been edited. That document got over to Ian for his, where he's gonna go with that. So thank you. Every comment that was made is in there, so.
Like,
Park visits, purpose, format, documentation, group, and if you turn the page, here's the proposal. Basically broke up all the parks into groups, by month and tried to spread them out. Knowing that November is right around the corner, when we have an arboretum event in Bird Park, I'll put that up first. Try to take into account deer season. And just the ability to walk around in some of these places like Hoodridge, for example. You can't really navigate that when the brush is, well, we can't see anything, so.
Bring a machete.
Does this seem like a feasible time-wise, both for you to go out and visit these parks and then for us to talk about them? Trying to hit the April deadline, so to speak.
Robert, you suggest we should all go out on our own as we can and just hit as many of these or all of them.
Good question. So not knowing what everybody's schedules are, we could propose, maybe one group outing day for each park, and if you can make it, great. If not, you just try to make it on your own. Is that?
Ideally, if you're not familiar with it, that was helpful. I remember the first time I went with the group, and then because you get McNeely and Hoodridge. I think too, it really helps to have somebody who knows that space go. I don't know what your guys' experience is, but I remember the first time I went to McNeely, I would have been lost without somebody who knew the space.
So I guess, I think we should articulate the goals of this, which are slightly different with the transition. Because part of the goal was to orient us all to the parks, but transition, like we visited McNeely in March, which I mean, I agree, it was, you can't really understand that without being there. But it's the month before we're transitioning, so what's the goal of these visits? Maybe we should reduce it to focus on ones that we're working on imminently, or like maybe that are follow up to the invasive plan, since we're getting that soon, hopefully. And then, but yeah, just things that are already on our docket rather than just trying to hit every part. Because again, what's our goal?
So, in part was reading the charter or the responsibilities in the activity we did last month for Ian's update, is that we're supposed to do this, so I agree with you, though. What does it lead to other than our own personal knowledge of these places? If-
One thing I'd suggest for McNeely, I don't know where that's gonna be in the comprehensive plan, but I think are we trying to do a multi-community rec center?
That's what it's
So it'd be
mentioned
good
as.
for the new board members, some of the old board members to take a new board members to tour the property. Because the issue that ran into the past, I believe, is the SAB members never went there, never really understood the earth movement issues and the topography. And then once the estimates came in, it was like, oh my God, that's expensive. So the new board, that's really the new group should really understand what the space is like, because not all land is flat.
Yeah, maybe we're the outgoing last of this cycle anyway, because I know it's been an iterative thing. Parks focused board, maybe we just need to be up to date so that we can potentially.
So Williamsburg would be great to leave a set of notes, like where's the project at, what needs to be done next, so it doesn't get dropped. Because the tree planting, is there one more wave to do? A couple of years?
I think we were gonna wait and see
Keep
what
looking at it.
Bob fills in and what our thoughts are at that point.
Yeah, so there's that. So hey, there's some park specific things that would be good to hand over to next board.
Like, you guys, what benefit can we provide to you by going to these places?
I mean, you're seeing it with a different set of eyes, we go through there on a regular basis, pretty much daily on most of the, not McNeely, obviously, or those type of parks, or even Twin Hills. We'll catch the garbage cans on the ends, and if we get a call about something, we'll hit those, but you're looking at things from a different perspective than we are, probably. We're looking at it probably 90% from a maintenance standpoint of what we see that's either dangerous or needs to be addressed or maintained. And, kind of setting up short range, long range plans as well, but for the most part, you guys are looking at it from a different perspective, so I would say that would be our benefit feedback.
You've already visited the true small neighborhood parks of Church Place, Country Club.
Yep.
Highland Terrace,
Highland Terrace, maybe cut those three right
yeah, what
there.
are they really?
That's why in part these are grouped the way they are too, is that it's geographic, but you can click off those in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Right. But Twin Hills take you an hour to walk.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there's others, there's not much to see. I mean, you can almost do a drive-by on those.
I think it's a
See
good
what's going on there.
point to reference the ones that you have a fresh update from Tim on. The ones we focused on, I don't know, that might be something if you stay on those ones that Tim mentioned, sort of as a follow-up discussion to what presented, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, actually, that's another good point, is like, what's gonna be in our mind relative to Twin Hills and McNeely, for example, when we read his report, if we haven't been there in a year. So it is to be up to date on that. current status. And this is not mandatory,
Right.
you know. You can, I appreciate the trying to focus on what is the objective, but we are fulfilling our duty per the charter. Being aware in order to interpret things like the Oikos plan. If there's anything glaring out there, we should definitely notify. In fact, did the Conservancy clean up the garbage and like party site in Twin Hills
Yeah.
recently? Because I noticed it wasn't there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Roger, so
It's pushed farther down the hill now.
Oh, really?
Was it, well,
Say, where's the new one?
there's still a couch lurking over more towards Bethel area, but
So that's the kind of thing.
yeah, I schlepped a couple of tires and other trash out a month or two ago. But
So one of the tasks is if we see anything like that, we should use the squares, the grids and report it. But yeah, I understand. I have the same reservation.
I vaguely recall, and maybe I'm thinking of something else, that PAB did like a surveys with sort of a checklist or something back years ago where they were specifically looking for each part. And I'm not suggesting we still need that or.
I think things have changed a little bit since then, you know, I mean, just the maintenance, I guess, and the amount of people that are in the parks that,
Yeah.
because we get that, I mean, we have 33,000 inspectors every day, you know, that give us a lot of feedback, so.
I'm not lobbying for that, I just vaguely recall
Yeah.
there's something that should be. About. I think what I have, Rob, is, I thought that there wasn't any deer hunting on weekends. I mean, that's what the signs at, Twin Hills say, but maybe I'm wrong. Very,
I mean, there's no sun behind it, I know that,
I took this blurb at the bottom below the table directly off the PA Game Commission website.
okay.
That look, I actually, that's, does that look right to you? For archery?
you know, for 2B, right, you use
Yeah, the
Management unit.
wildlife management.
2B, yeah.
I just vaguely recall when the commissioners first implemented or allowed for the hunting and the parks, there was some carve out.
Limitations.
Yeah,
You may be
I saw
right.
a similar sign. that said,
I have to ask
I think in Bird Park it says not weekends. I mean,
I'd have to ask
the
Ian.
garden,
I mean, it's an internal rule, not a game commission,
So-
yeah, this is
Allowable by the state, but not by us.
correct.
yeah, okay. There's some people who challenge that. Say the game commission should supersede any.
Right.
Then you'll have to.
Yeah, that's right.
Wear an orange vest regardless, because you don't wanna have your life on whether the guy read his calendar properly.
We can ask Ian about that, because Ian's kind of our local expert, so on what the rules of the road are for this particular process.
They don't think it'll be real quick.
I don't think so, no. No, there's no room down there.
Yeah, so those with hunting have asterisks by their name. Twin Hills, Hoodridge Conservation Area, Rob Hollow, Neely, Sunset, Williamsburg, although last year no one hunted Williamsburg.
Yeah, Williamsburg is new this year.
Beck Snyder, is it necessary for us to go there?
No, that's a Dormont Park, but it's within the boundaries of Mount Lebanon,
You can go there if you're curious.
yeah.
Should you walk on Twin Hills for that?
McNeely,
Or McNeely? That would make sense.
that's the big valley down there, yeah, the Beck Snyder, it's right, yeah.
I've never been.
No, it's on the left-hand side, right before McNeely, right before you cross into Dormont, right above high school.
So before the month coming up, shall we throw out a day, like a Saturday, pick a Saturday? And put it out there if people wanna go at the same time, you know?
That'd be fun.
business?
Two people want to bring up, but I think I've brought them up before, but I just wondered if something we want to talk further about in the future. One is the parklet again, and giving it a name, or whether we want to just officially consider it part of Rob Hollow. In some ways it does stand apart from Rob Hollow, so I don't know. So maybe we could discuss that at a future meeting. I won't take up our agenda now, but and also just, you know, if we want to further define what kind of parklet it is in any way for future enhancement. That's the first thing. The second thing is something of, and again, you'll have to help me read on this. I'm not sure if it falls into parks, but I kind of consider Cedar Boulevard as part of our park in a way. And so across from the tennis courts, that whole area there, and this might also have to do with what Boykos comes back with, even though he hasn't assessed that.
Specifically.
Yeah, but techniques perhaps. I just think that there was that perhaps we should consider, maybe it's a future CIP or something. Just like an overall design enhancement of that, because so many cars go by there and it represents Mount Lebanon. And I kind of feel the same way about Bird Park on Washington Road. I know that's a degraded area, but in some ways, if we enhance that to just make it look a little bit better, it becomes more inviting, and then it becomes it does the same work an interpretive sign does, but without having to say anything.
There's more property there than you think, that lot.
I know,
mean,
I've looked at
it's a
it on
piece
that.
of, yeah, it's a decent sized parcel, and it
Right.
runs all the way up to the back of those properties that are on Academy.
Right.
And there's not much of a backyard, but they do mow down into kind of the edge of the slope there, so. Yeah, it's always been overgrown. I mean, you know, it would be nice, I think, you know, I've often thought about that a part of that's mowable. You know, it's not steep enough that you couldn't get in there, and probably if it was cleaned up properly, and probably could be mowable to maintain it, but you'd have to do that in order to maintain it, because there's grapevines and everything else growing in there right now.
There's been a lot of,
Duquesne Light came through and took a bunch of trees out too, because they have that primary that runs through there along that same parallel to Cedar Boulevard, and there were some really big oaks that were right next to that. One actually fell and took those wires down one time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that's a major trunk line going through Mount Lebanon, so. Yeah, that's 23 kV running through there, so.
At the rate we're clearing in 2027, we'll reach Washington. I would think 26 or 27 will reach.
the intersection at Salem and Cedar has been a topic in commission meetings for the last several months.
Pedestrian issues, right,
Pedestrian
right,
issues.
right. Traffic,
And,
pedestrian.
and yeah, I think there is a plan to do something with that crossing. But I wonder if there were a walkable trail through that wooded section. What is the wooded section now? To the Morgan Drive crossing, which is a street light. You know, bring kids off of Salem, right turn on vegetation and a path to Morgan Drive and cross at the traffic light rather than having them cross at that unlit, not lit, but like traffic signal.
It certainly looks more manageable and less daunting in the wintertime. When everything gets knocked down, you can kind of see through there, and you can actually almost see those houses up
That
on
would be a
Academy.
mobility task force.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If reading the comp plan, it's like, where's this stuff coming from? Well, I suspect it's because that's where they think the money's gonna come from. Is through these different mobility and complete streets initiative type stuff. So on the one hand, I'm challenged by things that we haven't come up with, but on the other hand, if they're saying that's where the resources are, we need to look at that. So yeah, that area across from Cedar Boulevard, it's an eyesore. Kind of center, it's terrible.
And it's not so much even just for, you know, getting rid of invasives and restoring natural area. It's the idea of having a designed boulevard, if you will. It is a boulevard, I guess. So, you know, what you see a lot in Europe and everything, they'll have a fountain, a gathering place and things like that. So it's just the idea that Cedar Boulevard could kind of be this corridor, yeah, to parks, kind of the equivalent of what Beverly and, you know, our uptown district now are. for the township, so it could just be a nice design landscape.
And at Greenhurst, it looks great. Those beds, those plantings, those trees, I don't know what kind they are with the papery
Mhm.
bark.
Pepper birch, yeah.
They look great.
Yeah, those are what, Phil, probably 5, 6 years old, something like that.
Those were done when I started twenty
First,
fifteen.
okay. Redone, yeah,
Yeah, redone.
yeah,
So imagine continuing that to Salem.
the theme, yeah. Okay.
Or a malt truck.
Well, maybe a meadow.
Yeah.
We got it.
It's just putting it down.
So that could be new business. How do you wanna, this is like something totally, but not totally.
Well, I guess if fellow members agree on that, put those items on the next, the agenda, if there's room to discuss. Seems like a lot of the other ones. Don't have that they crossed off, so. I think we'll still be dealing with signage and invasives. Part design, it's in part design.
Bradford will be going.
Yeah.
Any other new business? Okay, seasonal and special items, October, street trees. Rudy, thank you for sending us the list of trees. I know Peter and I gave you some feedback on some different species. Did you have anything new or anyone else have anything? they wanted to
Just right before we came to Tom's email about the mobility, there seemed to be a lot about sidewalk uplift and cracks and just let, maybe let them know that we reviewed the street tree list and changed it to more mid-sized trees and trees less likely to cause uplift. So at least
Yeah,
PAB is ahead of the curve on that one, public works, and we've already changed kind of the city's approach to kind of smaller trees, basically.
It's not only that, it's also like the locations too. So, you have to consider, there's some areas where trees just shouldn't have been planted years ago and they just overgrew their space and, and it's hard to take them out now because people have been attached to them, but they're causing damage and they're
Yeah.
growing over the curbs and.
And I looked up the standard is 5-foot setback from the curb if you want trees and 6 feet if you want large trees.
Okay,
And I know like a lot of places, just 3 or 4 feet.
yeah, you just can't get it. I mean, most of the grass strips are anywhere from 2 to 3 feet wide, so to fit a bulb burlap tree in there that is, some of those were probably bare root planted too back in the day.
Big enough for a bush.
Yeah, but I mean, you can't plant that realistically either, it's not a street tree, and it's a street bush, and it causes interference and,
Right.
those type of things, so. There's a lot that goes into it, there's a lot of decision points, and, you have to take into consideration what will grow and what's salt tolerant, drought tolerant, all those type of things, and even as the shape of the tree, because of vehicles passing by. I think, Rob, you had an example there of a crabapple or a hawthorn or something that just got destroyed, and the branches were broken on both sides and just because of the growth habit. So you have to take that into consideration as well.
So Rudy said it really eloquently, but there seem to be a couple of points about sidewalk uplift and how should the cost be shared and versus,
Well, we have a
Rudy's
program
getting at
to
the root
address.
cause.
I mean, we do some in-house and we, this year, the budget for the root damage sidewalk replacement. And I can actually show you.
well, I was saying the root cause is to go different trees or
Right.
put the trees in the right
But
place.
it's a never ending task. I mean, we have 10 zones that we've broken, that we've mapped all the sidewalks in Mount Lebanon, private and municipal. We have 10 zones that they're equally broken up into based on sidewalk lengths. And we try to do, the original plan was to do one of those zones every year. Well, it's taken 2 to 3 years to do one of those zones. So we have 10 zones, it's gonna take 20 to 30 years to get through the entire community. So there's some that were, for example, there were 2, I think they were Norway maples, if I'm not mistaken, grown on Lebanon Avenue, right up by Washington Road. They were, the sidewalks were basically ramps next to those, the stone wall that was there. Well, we removed the trees because they were well beyond the space that was required for those to grow. Also, what I was concerned about, the manager asked, or he ordered me to get those sidewalks replaced, so we did it with in-house crews. When you dig those out, you're removing a good portion of the roots, so there's a good chance that those trees can fall towards the street because there's not much of a root system left once you take that out.
Contrast.
So,
Rockhaven, that was a new road, 1990.
right,
Yeah, the city put the calorie
Yeah,
parapet,
the
whatever
pear
you
trees.
choose to- but there's not a single
right,
panel uplift anywhere along the whole street 30 years later,
Right.
35 years later, so it's just the right trees and the right, I think it's
That's-
a 4 foot setback with mid-sized trees
Right.
that don't.
but we have limitations with the right of ways too, so the street right of ways are typically 50 feet, there's some that are 40, a handful that are 40, some are 60 feet. Primarily Washington Road, Cochrane Road, Bar Hill and such. So most of the right of ways are just behind the edge of the sidewalk. So we can't plant beyond the public right of way. We can't plant on private property in people's front yards and that type of thing. We encourage them to do that if they would like to do that. But we can't, we have to plant in that grass strip because the vast majority of the places where we can plant, there's the grass strip, but if you try to plant behind the sidewalk, I know that was one of your questions.
Yeah.
You can't get outside of the right of way, because now you're not on public property, you're on private property. And that's the limitation.
We do look at it.
We do, and we get requests from residents, and if they ask, we have a program where we will, if they pay for the very first tree, it's $155, I think. If they pay for the first tree, we will plant that. We'll give them a list of trees that we think will work there, and they can make that decision because they're paying for it. We're very limited when it's under utility wires. I don't even really like to plant under utility wires anymore, but you know, my comment as far as the lilac and the hedge maple, that's something we've had good success with from a survival standpoint. And they look good, the residents really like them. You're really limited. We've tried crab apple, different varieties of crab apple. I mean, there's a cajillion different types of crab apple. Hawthorn, some of those, they grow laterally instead of vertically. Some of the shapes are kind of roundish, but you have a problem, now they're next to the sidewalk, so the pedestrians walking along, if it's dark, they can get jabbed in the eye, so you gotta be real cautious of that. The fruit, yeah, most of the fruit, like you said, you know, it will, but there have been, especially on your street, Peter, we had to cut a couple trees down because they were just fruiting so bad. And dropping fruit, yeah, they were dangerous because they were tripping.
If I like to look at a dog or something, they go right.
Exactly. So we haven't planted a crab apple or a hawthorn, as a street tree in, well, probably 20 years, 15, 20 years. I stopped doing that quite a while ago.
Why everybody just plants ginkgos. Just throws in the town.
And well, then in ginkgo, you don't, I mean, they guarantee you that it's not a female tree, but it could be. And then if it produces fruit, that's another problem off of that too. So, yeah.
Well, I think
They're so slow
you're
growing.
right. If there's not space for a tree, we should be.
Right.
putting there.
We don't want to create a problem in
People
20
have to
years for someone else
accept
that they
that
have to
as
deal with.
So-
There's utility conflicts, you know, there's gas lines and water lines that we're usually fighting, could be buried electric lines, communication lines. So there's so many different things that we are evaluating when we're trying to put a tree back in or add a tree or this and that. So, you know, we look at all these things and each individual spot is a decision point, so.
For these strips that are like this,
Mhm.
there's not really any tree that should go.
No, you know, and I thought about planting bare root trees. You can get bare root trees, but you're just asking for problems because in 5-10 years, you know, it's gonna outgrow that space and sometimes you're better off. We planted a few bare root trees as an experiment, but then you have to stake them. So now you're staking them right next to the sidewalk and right next to the roadway because ball and burlap, it'll sit on its own and you can get it in the hole and it'll stay. But, you know, when you're doing bare root, sometimes they do better because you're planting them in the soil that they're gonna live in. You're introducing a different type of soil. I had a big problem probably 10-15 years ago. We were getting a lot of plants from Shemin. And a lot of their plant material was coming up from down south and it was coming in with sandy soil for the root balls. And it just, you know, roots won't go from a soil region of one type of sandy soil to a silty clay loam, a clay or a loam. It will just be root bound. Yeah, and it'll be root bound. Yeah, and the roots won't transfer from one type of soil to another, so, we just stopped buying from them because they were bringing everything up, and it was out of it was like 2 zones south to 2 or 3 zones south. So we were losing 20-30% of the plantings we were planting out
So
there.
the point is not how to figure out a fun sidewalk uplift, it's to stop in the first place by not planting trees that shouldn't be planted.
Well, we're still addressing, I mean, we have
Yeah,
almost
yeah,
10,000 trees out there that we're maintaining along the street right of way, so, you know, you're still gonna have that, and we're this year, the budget was, I think, $92,000. You know, we're paying about $11 a square foot.
Decisions today, you won't have uplift in 50 years.
Well, yeah, you'll minimize it.
Yeah, it'll take a while.
Yeah. So that's what we're trying to do.
It may be completely infeasible, but I mean, on my street, there's all a block long, there are some healthy looking large trees and, you know, substantial uplifting of the
What
sidewalk.
street's that, Tom?
That's Lyndhurst.
Okay,
You know, so I don't know if there are any sort of technological or engineering approaches.
we've tried to go.
Deviate from the, you know, modify the sidewalk design so you don't have to take giant roots out and kill the trees.
We've looked at, you know, we've taken those steps and we've tried to minimize that. Actually, years ago, we had it was a machine that had a big saw wheel on the front of it. And we would go along when we knew we had in preparation to remove those slabs, we would cut down about a foot or so to remove the adjacent slabs on it before we even started on any of that work. Well, we started losing some trees, you know, some trees started falling over because we were cutting the surface roots. It didn't really harm the trees themselves, and we don't see that. So because we ripped some roots out, but when they're substantial, we try to either half moon the sidewalks around, you know, to get a little bit of, we have to maintain the ADA compliance, though, the 4-foot width, so that wheelchairs and so forth can get around there. But we try to do the half moon thing. We try to, you know, go up and back down. I was just up looking and I walked, we had some complaints up on Vernon Drive up the top. And there's those big oak trees up there and they're substantial. Yeah, they're all lifted pretty bad. So, I mean, you know, what do? You know, you take the sidewalk slabs out and you start digging, you know, you're gonna do some damage to those trees. And yeah, they're beautiful trees and they're huge and they're nice, but you know, people were trying to push baby carriages there and so forth. So, I mean, I think it's gonna come to a point where we're gonna have to start removing some of these trees or just living with the damage there. We try to put the asphalt in too. Someone will call. And there's
You really can't, because the legal liability, you can't leave it up with the cities have negligence, so you gotta.
well, they're not really municipal sidewalks, technically, if you want to get legally technical, because they're the responsibility of the property owners, but we have programs to try to address the issue that's created by the municipal street trees. We can't control where the roots go or how they, you know, it's the same way with the drain or something of that nature, but.
So is it fair to say that we'll probably put fewer trees on tree lawns going forward?
We haven't really been doing that. We're just trying to manage what type of trees we're putting in, what type of trees we're installing. Our policy is to try to replace every tree that we remove. Now, if it's one of those sections where like, Lebanon Avenue, there's about a foot there, a foot and a half. You can't even fit a root ball there. You know, the guys have to jump on it and you can't even get the root ball because the trees we typically buy are 1.5 inch, 1 3/4, 2 inch diameter. And the root balls are typically 24 to 30 inches in diameter. So you got to have a hole that big or bigger in order to plant these trees.
So that, you just described my block.
Okay, what street are you on, Rob?
Royce Avenue, the
The loop.
six,
The loop,
the
okay.
horseshoe.
Where's McCullough?
Yes. And McCully doesn't even have a tree lawn.
Right.
Royce, it's really narrow. And there are almost no trees left because there were a few ash trees, I think.
Yeah.
So what I'm thinking about is, okay, we're limited in space and species. We better make sure the big wide open spaces have trees in them. So it's like, take a step back. We're not gonna have a tree in front of my house because it's like this wide. And my neighbors are the same, across the street's even narrower. But it's nice that there are trees behind those houses.
Mhm.
So I'm thinking like, what can the municipality do? And maybe it's not the municipality only because a lot of private properties involved, but like if you look at this picture of Beverly, like this is a 4-year-old picture, and exactly the same.
Mhm.
Those are big open yards. The only utilities overhead are the cable wires, and that's a single strand, you know, fairly mobile wire. But that's gonna, without somebody influencing these homeowners, that's gonna be like that in 10 years.
Yeah,
And there's like 1 or 2 decent sized trees on the opposite side of the street. One's really big. That'll be lots.
yeah, that's been getting hit by trucks, I think, you know.
And then Beverly's gonna be. So I guess what I'm trying to set up here is, we know we have the limitations right against the road. We better look at other spots as a community to fill in.
I think it's gonna be the property owner, to be honest with you, Cause you know, you're talking about private versus public.
Yes.
We can't spend public funds on private property, you know, it'd be like paving somebody's driveway. I mean, you just can't do that, you know, it would be up to the homeowner. The plan, and I would prefer, like on a street like that, a busy street, Beverly Road, a corridor street, you know, collector, arterial. To have that tree further back, away from, yeah, exactly, and split the difference, you know, because now they're gonna benefit. You have a slope in front of there, you know, even if you,
Right.
you know, now you've even increased your distance from the road because you can't plan on that slope and manage that tree or maintain it. So you almost automatically have to kick it, and it's gonna be out of the right of way. I can almost guarantee you that that's gonna be a 50-foot right of way on Beverly, so. But, those are some of the things that we deal with, you know, and, again, we try to replace, there's been times when we have taken a tree down because the water or gas company will call us and the person's service, shut off, the curb stop is in the middle of the tree. So we gotta be real careful when we're grinding a tree. Now you have a water or gas line there. Well, you can't, you know, it's not smart to plant a tree back in that same hole. We might be able to shift it. It depends on the frontage, where the driveway is located. Are you gonna cause a visual impairment, obstruction?
What are aside from the ports or the shutoffs, what are the guidelines in terms of where you plant? So you can see, if you know where the water is in the house.
Yep.
Or the gas
The
meter
meter,
on the house.
right.
You can kind of get a
It's
sense of where
typically,
those
right.
lines are. What is the guideline in terms of if you're into the yard, let's say,
Okay.
on the house side of the sidewalk? Are you trying to be away from those things? Does it matter? Like when they replace those, is it through like, it's all subterranean, they've got a.
You wanna be 5 to 6 feet away.
Yeah, if you can. I mean, you try to be as far away as you can, but we're typically, the average lot is a 50-foot frontage in Mount Lebanon. So, you know, we try to maintain a 40-foot spacing between our trees to give them enough room. So that's usually only one tree per property. Or, you know, it depends on how it all shakes out, but that's typically what we're looking to do. And unless it's under the wires, we can tighten it up a little bit. We'll drop down to 30 if we, you know, if we feel it's feasible. But we try to maintain a 40-foot spacing and consistently so that it looks good too, you know, so you have a consistent spacing. And then we're trying to avoid the whole, you know, one whole street like Valley Park or Sunridge with, ash trees, you know, one end to the other. And we're moved in and now we're losing half the trees that we had on that street. So, you know, we're starting from scratch. So we're trying to break things up, mix things up and keep that variety going, you know, so if we do get hit with a bug or a disease or an insect or something, it's not gonna wipe the whole street out. We might lose half of the trees, but at least keep, you know, some sort of, crop rotation, if you will, so that we manage that as well. So there's a lot that goes into it that people don't realize, you know, that.
What about guards? Are you?
I'm sorry, guys, this is all about a point to make this point, all of what Rudy just said to the mobility group, that there's a lot of thought going into
Yeah.
tree selection for the sidewalk uplift and, you know, that's a part of the equation.
And then there's the whole maintenance end of it too.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we have a 3-man crew with almost 10,000 street trees that we're maintaining. We're averaging, well, I can pull up and show you guys how we manage stuff. I plan on doing that if you guys are interested in that.
Yeah.
But, you know, we've cleared almost 750, 780 work orders so far this year. And that's with a 3-man crew, you know, so, I mean, even if we worked every day, 365, that's, you know, a lot of requests, 2 per day on a 7-day week, which we only work 5. And, you know, then we have storms that come through. We had a couple windstorms this year. Once we have a windstorm, we're getting additional calls and things that people were calling about. They finally see a limb was broken and the leaves are starting to curl up 20 feet up in a tree, maybe 2 weeks later, you know, so there's, depending upon the severity of the storm that we have, that's a follow-up for 2 or 3 weeks of damage that we're addressing and assessing, you know, triaging every time it comes in. Excuse me.
Manage. Okay. You said you got a new shipment of tree guards. One of them on the park trees. Any thoughts about putting those on the street trees?
Yeah, sure. We typically leave the shipping tubes on them. That's the corrugated metal, or corrugated, cardboard that basically comes on. It's to protect them during shipping so they don't get, excuse me, banged up. We leave those on for a year or two. I don't like leaving them on too long because insects it holds moisture, it adds heat to the trunk of the tree. Insects get in there. So we leave them on for a little while, and that's helped too, but yeah, we can add guards on, it's no big deal. We'll find a supplier on Amazon, I think, for pretty cheap, so.
And what was how do you feel about the tree bags? I know you used them at Williamsburg.
I think we would have lost half of those trees or more if we wouldn't have put those on.
Yeah, we didn't lose anything over there yet.
Cause it was, we got a pretty dry section there, or a dry period for probably 2 or 3 weeks.
May or June.
Yeah,
Then again, about 3 weeks ago.
and then we got bladders. We purchased a bladder to put in the back of one of our smaller trucks, and we have a Bushman Truckster. It's a little mobile unit that can go out in those type of areas, and we fill that up with water and then just transfer that to fill the bags up. That's worked out pretty well.
Anyone else have any questions about this stuff?
And show you guys how we manage the work orders if you want. I mean, I give a GIS map if you're interested.
Yeah. Please.
If I can.
But is there a need for more resources on your end? I guess you always want.
I mean, you know, what are the expectations? That's what the way I look at it. I mean, I think our guys do a great job of what they do and how they do it. It's overwhelming at times. We don't, at times we're reactive, probably more than I'd like to be. I'd like to be a little more proactive with some of these programs. But basically, the vast majority of our work is based on calls from residents. And that's how we data log them. We either get a call, an email, or you can submit a printing request, excuse me, or through the MyLevo system. We triage those as they come in. We've trained our secretaries and other folks to take those calls to determine if it needs to be an immediate reaction or some sort of at least a set of eyes to go out and look and see how dangerous it is. And then we determine if it could just be put into the system. And then we try to work chronologically as those have been submitted, work backwards from that. Excuse me.
Sure you want to do this presentation?
I don't know.
I think you might.
I'm gonna try.
I'll just ask one question. What is an open elevates?
I'm sorry.
Open elevates.
So these are all open. Okay, let me look at my computer and not up there. See how I do this. So these are all open requests. So that indicates each one of these is a filtered layer based on, here's all the, give me a second here. So these are our current active open forestry requests. So each one of those represents a request that has been submitted and data logged into our system. So right now we have 300 requests that are active. Now of those 300, add off, we have removals that are pending. Those removals are 57. So of those 300, there's 57. So we have 8 different categories on here, Rob, to answer your question. Turn that off. Dormant pruning or oaks and sycamores. So it has to be done when they're in dormancy. So we categorize them in the year they've been placed too. So we have one from 2022 that we have to complete. And current open, these are just oak trees. Or sycamores, we have 34 right now. So as soon as we get the first frost this fall, we'll jump over to these and we'll start pruning these trees. Because they need to be done in the wintertime. So that's part of why we get a backlog on our system, if you will. Because if you submit one right at the end of dormant pruning season, which is March or April of early this year, it's going to sit until we get into the dormant program for the next fall or winter. So we have that. So open pruning requests, these are just regular, excuse me, these are open prunes where we just regular trees, maple trees, whatever, that need to just be pruned and thinned out. Open health checks, these are, somebody called in, they saw something on a tree. They thought maybe it's a fungus, a bug, whatever it might be. We need to go out and we need to check those. And then we can, in our service request system, work orders, we can, put notes on that or clear it out if it's not an issue. Fallen limbs, this just tracks where fallen limbs are that we need to pick up. Clear wires means it's an open, service request. And we need to clear the utility wires that are going into the house, whether they're service lines or whatever that might be. Open hazard inspection. Somebody felt they saw a crack in a tree, they think a limb may fall. Those are probably really recent. There's only 4 on there. But the guys work on those almost, we will take a ride around too. If I get a service request and I'm in the area, I'll run out, I'll take a look at it. Dan Kirk, our superintendent, he'll look at it. We'll make a determination. Maybe it doesn't need to be done right now, or maybe it can be reclassified as just a regular prune or something of that nature. Removals pending. These are trees that we have scheduled for removal, but they haven't been removed yet. These are removals that have been completed. And again, these were all of open forestry requests. So just to show you what what our guys have been doing too. This is a 5-year look back filtered layer. This is the work that they've completed in the last 5 years. And there are 3,390 service requests that they've completed in 5 years from today back. And so far this year, reserve fall forestry requests current year, so that would be 2023. This is the amount of work that they've done so far this year. And it's a mixture of all those things you can see. And a health check, that might be a 5-minute deal. But if you get a prune request or a dormant prune request, let's say a property over on Old Farm, and it has 2 or 3 mature oak trees, they can spend 2 or 3 days there, pruning those big oak trees that are almost 100 foot tall. So these are not equivalent, each one of these are not, it's not the same as far as the time requirement. But if you look at this, so far they've done 725 requests so far this year. So they get a lot done. And then we can also, let me see how I'm going to do this. So this is our service request system, our public service manager. So, we can do the same thing here. I can look at open request. I can run a report for the total dormant pruning open. I guess I gotta log in first. So this is a list of all the service requests that we have for dormant pruning. And you can see the date that it was submitted. You can view the actual service request. The guys can go out, they have iPads in the truck. They can actually add a note to this. They can resolve it. We can assign it to a certain person or a certain crew if we need to do that. We can attach pictures, we can upload files and attach it to these work orders. And this is all web-based, so pretty cool system. Our IT department, actually, Nick Stellis, designed this from scratch. And it's interactive with our GIS mapping. So all of these are our GIS guy, Mike Masick. He downloads a list of these and it's based on XY coordinates. It drops one of those markers based on how it's categorized for each one of the sites based on property addresses. It centers it up on the property address X and Y coordinate. So yeah, it is. It's, we've organized it a lot. I used to just take calls, put them on a spreadsheet, a workbook, break them up into sections, north, south, east, west, and central, tab for each, and that's how I tracked everything. Then this stuff was put together. I started working on things and getting it over into GIS and being able to, kind of look at big picture. So the nice thing about this is, so if the guys are out and they have, again, they have their laptops with them, or not laptops, but iPads. They can go and they can, if let's say they're working in Sunset Hills over in the east, they can turn on all the open forestry requests. And they, if they're on a street over here somewhere, country club, and they're working on this, they can see, hey, we got, we have work across the street, or right down the street, and they can knock out a few requests. It's more efficient for them at that point. So,
Thanks, Rudy.
okay. Good, I can unshare now.
Any other questions, comments relative to trees? Tree.
Watch the truck. Sharpen saws.
Final item is, topics for visits to commission. Last couple of meetings have been pretty well occupied by residents with regard to development in their neighborhoods. Commission meetings are pretty good to watch. Would anyone, if anyone wants to volunteer, or does anyone have a idea for a topic for next couple of meetings or a meeting coming up?
I'm gonna be out the whole month, but. This is budget month, right, where they're just.
Yeah, we just got a notice today to do the poll to decide what, to let them know our availability for review. So I think, yeah, it's gonna be end of this month and into November and possibly early December.
You wanted to. Anybody wanted to talk about?
Replay our priorities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can do it in November. Also, I don't know. We were gonna, I think that when Richard presented the project 50, Andrew was gonna look into what we should do next with it. Is that something that should be presented to the commission, or what should be done with it actually now?
I think he said he was gonna forward it.
The solicitor.
No, yeah, the PowerPoint to, he's gonna send it to the other commissioners. He didn't really say who, but he said he would forward it to the right people. That it get reviewed.
I guess we could ask about it.
Yeah.
Okay, motion to adjourn. Second. All in favor? Aye. All right, thanks, everyone.
When you guys woodwork,
Contact.